Are you an early stage founder revolutionizing the future of retail? Then you're in the right place. My name is Sapna Shah, and I'm an angel investor investing at the pre-seed and seed stage in retail tech, e-commerce, marketplaces, and consumer. I'm also the founder of Retail X Series, an ecosystem to help early stage founders in the retail and consumer sectors. Retail X Series includes events, a YouTube channel, a Slack community, resources for founders, and this podcast. In this podcast, I interview founders, investors, and experts in the retail space, and we dig deep into the tactics around key topics that early stage founders want to hear about. Welcome to the Retail X podcast. Hello, everyone. Today's episode is about fashion marketplaces. We all know that building a fashion marketplace is hard, and our guest today, Trisha Bantigue, the CEO of Queenly, will talk about how she built her formal wear marketplace startup with innovation at the core. Welcome to the podcast, Trisha.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So happy to have you here and so happy to have this conversation. So let's start a little bit with some background. Can you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and your background before we get into Queenly?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of my background that would be applicable to my company is that it's a mix of two things. Once I graduated from UC Berkeley, I started working in the tech industry here in San Francisco. I worked at Meta and then Uber, where I was in executive recruiting for engineering. So I worked very closely with the CTO to pretty much recruit directors and VP levels for the engineering department. So that really taught me a lot in terms of managing a tech organizations, prioritizing engineering strategy and project, et cetera. And then the other half would be I actually spent 8 years competing within the pageant industry, the pageant circuit in the United States. And this enabled me to see the behind the scenes within the formal wear industry. I got to network and learn more from each designer and got to see how transactions are being made and the supply chain logistics, et cetera.
Yeah, that pageant piece is so interesting, and I think you'll probably get more into it as we talk about Queenly. Let's move straight into Queenly. Why did you pick formal wear? What was the problem you were solving?
Yeah, I think at that time, around, let's say 2018, that's when I started having this itch of wanting to start Queenly before I even named it Queenly. I realized that there has been such a phenomenon within the fashion industry and tech intersecting at that time. We saw there was the rise of Rent the Runway, The Real, Poshmark, etc. And I just started seeing more and more online shopping behavior thanks to Amazon. But being in the pageant industry, and I was seeing that women, girls, moms were still buying in person or transacting manually on Facebook groups. And then later on, there's a chance of them getting scammed. And I just got to see like how much they were spending on these dresses and how difficult it was, the discoverability, the accessibility, affordability of it all. And I couldn't really find them on the existing fashion tech marketplaces. So I decided, you know what, if there's anyone that's going to tackle this specific problem, I think it would have to be me and my co-founder, because there's not a lot of techies that have competed in pageants.
I mean, the Venn diagram of that must be just you, actually.
I know. It's coming up right now. I've been seeing a lot more like women in STEM and pageants and engineers, but at that time it was definitely like really rare.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, you found this formal wear opportunity. When you launched, what categories did you first start with, and who was that target customer? Was it a pageant customer?
Yes, and I think for any type of marketplace, I highly recommend to be very like hyper local or just very focused on one small category and winning that category first. So when we first started, we didn't raise any funding. We were still pretty much working on this nights and weekends. And I realized that over the 8 years that I've competed, I have garnered a very rich network within that circle. Every single time I would compete in an organization, the girls that I competed with, which can range anywhere from 30 to 200 each batch, if you think about it, like a YC batch, right? Then they become like my friends or just acquaintances that knew about what I was doing. And I made sure to keep really good relations and not burning bridges with the directors. So I was able to contact them like, hey, I'm starting this business. Can I advertise for free and give them a promo code and just spread the word out? And then I realized like this was a really good start to be a catalyst to the rest of categories, just because pageant girls were power users. They were very much used to buying and selling dresses, right? So that's where we started.
And so that was back around 2018, I think you mentioned. And thinking about where you are now, how many formal wear categories are you in? How have you expanded that range? And then also, maybe if you can tell us a little bit about stage and size to give the audience context of how many rounds of funding you've raised and how many employees you have now.
Yeah, so we are, I guess you would call post-seed, pre-series A, this awkward little phase, just because the whole industry is going through this awkward phase right now. But we have raised a total of 3 rounds so far. And the most recent one was in 2021. And this was led by Andreessen Horowitz. And it was right after us graduating from YC Winter 21 batch. We have 10 employees now. We're hybrid, a bit spread out in the US and Brazil and the Philippines. Super diverse. Majority of us are girls, and I love that. And for us right now, we have, oh my goodness, we've expanded so much. So we start going more into Gen Z friendly categories, which are prom, homecomings, debutante, cotillions, graduations, and then tapping into the whole wedding bridal industry. So that's the bride, the bridesmaids, mother of the bride, wedding guest, and even just bachelorette bridal shower outfits, right? It's a lot. Brides need a lot of dresses, actually. More into cultural events and attire. So quinceañeras are a big thing. We actually acquired a smaller quinceañera marketplace company called Mi Padrino in 2022. That helped a lot in having more Hispanic community on Queenly. And yeah, Indian lehengas and saris, Chinese chipaos, Vietnamese aoyais, etc. And then we started seeing, okay, there's an opportunity to also go into competition wear. So we have some ballroom dancing dresses, ballet dresses, figure skating, etc. And of course, now we went into a bit more casual, not really casual, but semi-formal. So any like cocktail party, date night, award ceremony, etc. So that's where we're at now.
That's a real expansion. My goodness. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, there's a lot.
No, I love it. You can get it on the same platform. You can get your figure skating outfit as well as your ballroom dancing outfit. I love that. Okay, so now let's go back to some of the earliest days. You started as a P2P, peer-to-peer marketplace in formal wear. What were the advantages of that model? What did you learn from that?
I think the biggest advantage of that model, which I've heard time and time again from founders that were ahead of me or have IPO'd or exited, is that not carrying inventory is so crucial as a fashion marketplace. And I think that's why a lot of the bigger companies nowadays that have gone public and do carry inventory, they're struggling a bit with margins because it's really hard to scale when you have in-house operations, in-house inventory and equipment, right? So peer-to-peer, we were like, you know what? Why would we manufacture new things when we could tap into the closets of like millions of women that already have dresses sitting in their closet that they'll probably never wear again. And yeah, it's free. It's like unlimited supply at no cost. And pretty much it's like the Poshmark model, just adding a few checks and balances here. And we started doing that and it works. Of course, there's always a little bit kinks here and there in the beginning, but we got to fix that to the point where, now we have a less than 3% return rate. I think compared to industry standards of 26, 27%. And that means the model is working, right? People are very keen to trading with each other now. It's like very normal to do P2P.
Yeah, for sure. In those early days, what were those barriers that customers had though to buy formal wear from a peer-to-peer marketplace?
Oh yeah. So it helped a lot that Poshmark and eBay already paved the way. They existed. So this type of model was not anything new. And also it helps a lot that I looked into a lot of Facebook groups that were solely focusing on formal wear resale. So there would be Mississippi's pageant resale group, and they would have 50K to 100K members. And there's literally so many transactions and posts every single day. So it was already existing, right? I think the hump that I had to get over was that we're a new brand, and there were just so many other online website scammers that a lot of customers that were not necessarily tech savvy, they were a bit hesitant to pay for a $900 secondhand prom dress on Queenly. That's a big number. And so I think for us, we really just had to prove ourselves time and time again that we're reliable. And PR started helping us a lot when we're able to drop that, hey, we're featured on Forbes, we're featured on ABC News, TechCrunch, etc. That really helped gain the trust and credibility.
That makes sense. I think it does take a while, right, for consumers to trust that they're going to get the product that they asked for.
Yeah,
It's going to be good quality, right? It's wearable.
exactly.
So now you're more than just P2P, right? You started adding brands as partners. Tell me a little bit more about that. Why did you do that? When did you do that? Which brands work best for the Queenly platform?
Yeah, I think we realized that when we first got hit with the whole COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns, etc., we were very worried, obviously, as a formal wear marketplace, but we realized that at least we're online, at least we're software, right? We don't have an expensive lease or a huge payroll and inventory, right? So we started looking more into the brick and mortars that started this whole industry that are still operating today. They had no way of making revenue. They had no foot traffic. And we started calling them up and realized that they have so much inventory that they can sell. And yeah, and we realized a lot of the girls that are on Queenly are very much familiar with all the brands that they carried. So we started onboarding them late 2020, I would say, provided pretty much their own website storefront. It eliminates the need for them to handle their own website, an inventory management system for them to track sales, to track inventory, mass upload stuff, etc. And that has helped our supply grow a lot at no cost as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then you've got the best of both worlds there, right? So now you have both the user content as well as the brand content
Yeah.
on the site. Okay, so I want to shift a little bit to what I think is very unique about your marketplace versus other fashion marketplaces. You're quite outspoken about innovation and using technology to make the customer experience better, especially in this category where you do have to build that trust. Things are difficult to buy online. Sizing is always an issue in apparel. So can you talk about some of the technology that you've incorporated that makes your platform very unique?
Yeah. So my co-founder and CTO, Kathy, she is, I would say, probably one of the best CTOs out there. I'm very proud of her. She's just amazing in terms of like how much she can build. It's so fast, and just her creativity as well. So for us, she knew, because she was coming from Pinterest, she spent about 4 years there, that predictive AI was going to be number one for us building our shopping feed. So we wanted to make sure that it was highly personalized, that we're not showing you things that you are not in your size, that you're not going to wear, that you're never going to look at, etc. And then we just started building a lot more tools that we realized a lot of our users that gravitate towards more like Gen Z, millennial crowd that were familiar of using. We made it more of a social commerce thing where there's a video feed very similar to TikTok, and we had a community social forum where people can ask questions and help one another. We had reverse image search built on top of or just text-based NLP search. That's when you can pretty much upload a photo and we can procure similar dresses based off of the heuristics of that photo. And it's just a lot quicker of a search. Sometimes girls don't know how to describe a dress, but they know how to screenshot one that they saw that they like. And then I think the most recent one is more so our generative AI and AR virtual try-on, where now you can pretty much try on any of our listings, whether it's resale secondhand or from one of our brand new partners. You could upload a photo and we could generate the dress on you, or you can use augmented reality to pretty much see the dress on you in real time.
How many of your users use some of these? Is everyone using the reverse image search? Is it a certain percentage? How many people do virtual try-on? I have to imagine everyone does the virtual try-on. What has the reaction been from consumers?
So I think our most successful product feature launch has been the virtual try-on, actually. And it's why we decided to start selling it as an API kit at the moment. Within less than 3 months, we started seeing that majority of the users are using it at least once when they log on. And then once they do use it, there is a 447% increase in the likelihood that they're going to purchase. So basically increasing the purchase conversion rate from someone that has just been like a dormant user who's never purchased anything before. That was really remarkable for us to see. And then the ones that have used it are 70% more likely to do a repeat purchase in less than 2 months, which is very fast for formal wear, right?
Yeah.
Most people would think that, oh, you only buy formal wear once, maybe twice a year, but it's been garnering a lot more attention. I think just because shopping is an emotional activity, it's an emotional purchase. And when you visually see the dress on you, the silhouette, the design, the color, and you feel good about it, you feel a lot more confident in pressing purchase.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you're not relying on one piece of technology or another, and that it sounds like you're building all of it in-house. What else do you think is out there for you to build that you haven't built yet, but you think would improve that customer experience even more?
Yeah, so something that has been brought to us is live shopping. I know that there are a lot of different marketplaces now that focuses solely on live shopping, such as Whatnot. So that might be a thing. It's just that we haven't really prioritized it just because our inventory is a bit different. But yeah, that's something we want to think of. We want to be able to provide real-time measurements through AR. That's something that is in our product roadmap. And probably one fun thing is an event dress code where brides that are getting married can pretty much curate their dress code and send just a link to all of their guests and see what is appropriate and what's not. So it's like a lot easier. So those are some of the fun stuff.
That is fun stuff. You and I have talked about this before. These technologies exist, and other platforms, companies, brands have launched things like virtual try-on. There are plenty of virtual try-on companies that have either failed or gotten bought for, by a bigger brand. Why do you think you're having so much success with this where others haven't?
Yeah, definitely there's a lot of factors that would go into this. I would say there's your skill set and the timing and luck of everything, and just pretty much the way that you're building the product, you have to build it with the customers in mind, not necessarily what you personally like, right? Or what you think is correct. Just because what I've learned within the last 5 years is that our users are not me. Even though I use my product, I can't put myself first. And so being able to see that And especially being a female founder, being a woman that uses the same product, it's a lot easier for me to understand how to build it for them, especially my CTO as well. She also has background in art and fashion design, so that helps a ton. And I think that previously these kinds of technologies were built and trying to build for fashion, and it hasn't really been like sticky or it hasn't been adopted widely. It's because, majority of them are built by probably male engineers who don't have any expertise in fashion, or they don't wear these types of things. And so they have just more so like a cookie cutter like code, right? Cookie cutter algorithm. And in the end, when it comes to the use case, the users are going to see it and it's a bit janky and it's just a bit inaccurate and it's not inclusive. It doesn't contour to plus size women, etc. And I think for us, building that in mind, we were able to build it to be a lot more accurate, a lot faster, and a lot more inclusive.
That's great. And I think you're right. I think you have to take the user in mind. And if your user is women, it's really helpful to understand what they're looking for when they're trying something on, or even in the case of your personalization. How do you personalize a category that's as complicated as formal wear, right? So
Yeah.
I think all of that makes total sense. You quickly alluded to the API that you've recently launched or about to launch. Could you tell me more about that?
Yeah, sure. It's actually super exciting for us to work on this right now. I started off as more, okay, this peer-to-peer model and consumer marketplace founder. And now I'm having to like pretty much learn B2B sales and just how to create a SaaS deck. But we saw so much success in our virtual try-on, especially because we've also filed a patent for it. We decided to start selling it. We saw that maybe a lot of other brands that haven't fully adopted this might be more open or keen to trying ours out just because it's actually producing real results. It's not just something like pretty and fancy and it doesn't really work, right? So this pretty much offers a full AI virtual try-on API kit that can allow all of their customers to either utilize augmented reality to try on any of the inventory on their platform or create the AI generated photo of themselves wearing it. But yeah, so this is super exciting. And right now we're working with our first client and we're in the midst of integration. So that has been really just fun for me to see.
Yeah, that's great because there are a lot of times where a lot of interesting technology comes out of something that was originally a consumer focused company, but founders have to build it because they needed it. And then suddenly it makes sense to go down that B2B model.
Yeah, we did it like in a reverse mode where usually people start off their company just off of this feature or this product, and then they don't have existing customer data like we do to be able to make it as accurate as it is.
Yeah, exactly. Amazing. Okay. All of this has been really helpful. And I think it's clear that you've spent a lot of time on building technology to make Queenly a better marketplace. And you've talked about a lot of things you've done. If you're thinking about founders who might be listening to this podcast, what would be the most critical piece of advice that you would give them if they're interested in launching a fashion marketplace, whether it's in formal wear or any other category, really?
Let's see. I would say, just because I myself probably in the very beginning have been very naive and got caught in all of the glitz and glamour of being a tech founder and just the excitement of it all, it's always know your why and always come back to that when you're lost, right? I think why you're building, why you're starting something from scratch is something that is going to help you power through any obstacles, because at times like, building a startup, building a marketplace even is so difficult. Any founder, any VC will tell you that one of the hardest startups to do is consumer marketplaces, right? But if you do figure it out, it's one of the most probably rewarding, gratifying, and your brand will be known by so many people, such as Amazon, eBay, Caviar, etc. But it's hard. And so for me, there were so many times where I wanted to give up because I'm like, should I still keep going? There's a freaking global pandemic. How are we going to make money? No one's going to buy dresses. No one's going to go out. I mean, I've had so many like investors pull out during that time. That was like my pre-seed time because they thought, oh, no one's going to wear formal dresses for at least another decade. Like they just were so cynical and negative about it. And for me, I started this because I was once that little girl that wanted to feel like she's Cinderella at prom, but I couldn't afford it. I don't come from your typical white wealthy family, and I can just go to Nordstrom or Bloomingdale's and buy this off the rack. I had to order mine from China for $70, and it took 3 months to ship. But I just thought to myself, I want every single girl to feel like a queen wherever she has a special moment, whether it's her graduation, her prom, her quinceañera, her wedding, but not everyone can afford those kinds of dream dresses. And so I wanted to help them through the means of technology. And that was just like my why. I don't want any woman or girl to feel like she's not enough because she can't look like that, right? I'm focusing on formal wear because these are the special moments that really you keep as core memories until you're 75 years old. These are the stories you retell when you went to prom and you wore this wedding dress at your wedding. And that is just so important to me that I'm helping make those memories.
I love that. I love that not only did you say that find your why, but you very clearly are very passionate about your why, which is amazing. Trisha, thank you so much for sharing your story and your advice on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. It's always really fun for me to talk about the beginnings and the why.
I can tell. And thank you for listening to the Retail X podcast. We'll have another new episode out shortly.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to learn more about Retail X Series, check out www.retailxseries.com for more information, including recordings of past events. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Retail X Series. You could also learn more about me, find fundraising resources, or submit a pitch deck at www.redgiraffeadvisors.com. Thanks, and catch you next time.